Hello everyone, this video is part of the video series for network services. I'm gonna install Windows Server 2016 in a virtual machine in VMware Workstation. So first I'll start VMware Workstation. And then from the file menu, I will create a new virtual machine. So I select new virtual machine. And I choose the custom option so that I can customize different options, and I go next. And then for hardware compatibility, I will choose Workstation 15.x. All the VMs that I will create in this VMware Workstation would be 15.x and later compatible. So I go next. I have three different options for choosing an installer. If I have a physical CD drive and a physical installer CD, then I could choose install from disk. If I have an ISO file and I want the ISO file to start right after I create this virtual machine to start installing, then I can choose installer disk image and point to the disk image. For flexibility purpose, I will install the operating system later. So I go next. There are different operating systems to install. Since I'm going to install Windows Server 2016, so I select Microsoft Windows, and from the versions drop-down menu, I will select Windows Server 2016. And then I go next. I will give a name to this virtual machine. Windows first and last initial and then 4 digits. I will keep all these virtual machine files in a separate folder. So I browse and go to the USB drive and create a new folder for this virtual machine. I will say Windows VM and select that new folder and press OK. So all the virtual machine files should be stored in this folder under the USB drive. So I go next. I keep the firmware type as default. Go next. I will use 4 processor, so I can choose 4 single core processor or 2 dual core processor. So 2 dual core makes 4 processor, and go next. I will use 4 GB of memory, so I click on the 4 GB and go next. Here I have 3 different network types. The first one is bridge networking. Bridge networking allows this virtual machine to connect to the physical network directly and get an IP address from a DHCP server from a physical network. And bridge network also allows you to connect to the internet if your physical network is connected to the internet. The NAT option keeps a separate network inside this host machine and also allows this virtual machine to connect to the internet by using NAT function. It doesn't get an IP address from a DHCP server in the physical network. I'm going to choose this NAT option, and there's another option which is the host only networking. This allows the virtual machine to communicate with other virtual machines within the host, but this virtual machine will not be able to communicate outside the host if I choose host only. So it will not be able to connect to the internet. I'm going to keep the NAT mode and go next. And for the IO controller, I keep the default and go next. For the disk type, I keep the default and go next. I will create a new virtual disk since I'm not going to use any existing virtual disk. So I keep new virtual disk and go next. Here I'm going to use a 60 GB of hard drive space, and for fewer files I'm going to choose store virtual disks as a single file, and I go next. I keep the default disk name and go next. So in summary, I am going to create a virtual machine. Its name is Windows NH0000, it will be stored in a folder in my USB drive. It is hardware compatible with workstation 15.x. I'm gonna install Windows Server 2016, and it has a 60 GB of hard drive space, 4 GB of memory, network card mode, and 4 processor, and so on. So I click on finish. So the new virtual machine has been created. It doesn't have an operating system yet. I'm going to install the operating system. Also, if I want to change any configuration for this virtual machine, I can do so. For example, if I want to change the number of processor, I can simply go to the edit virtual machine settings and then change the respective setting as desired. To make any changes in the virtual machine settings, your virtual machine needs to be turned off. Let's say if you want to make any changes after you install the operating system, make sure your virtual machine is turned off and then come to this settings and edit virtual machine settings. Also, you can right click on the virtual machine name and select settings and make changes here. Now I'm gonna mount the installer ISO image to the virtual CD DVD. So I go to the CD DVD option and then select the option where it says use ISO image file, and I browse and point to the ISO file that I have stored in my C drive. So I go to temp ISO, and this is the ISO file for installing Windows Server 2016 64-bit. And make sure this option is checked, connect on power on, and then press OK. Now if I power on this virtual machine, it will start installing the operating system. So I'll power it on by clicking on this power on button, and it's gonna prompt to press any key. So make sure you click inside and then press the key. Installation has started. It's gonna take a while to finish this installation, and I will simply go through the wizard with most of the cases default settings. So here I have the option to select language and time zone, keyboard, etc. I will keep the default and go next, and then press on the install now button. At this moment I don't have a product key. I'll select I don't have a product key. Here I have 4 different options, and I'm going to select Windows Server 2016 Data Center Desktop Experience and go next. So I have to accept the license terms and go next. Because this is a new installation, I will not choose upgrade option, I will choose custom. And then the virtual hard drive is selected. We go next. It's going to take some time, and I'll come back when it waits for my input. The installation process has prompted to put password for the built-in administrator account. So I'm going to set a password and then click on finish. The basic installation has been completed. Now I need to press Ctrl Alt and Delete key because I am using a VM environment and I need to send the key Alt Ctrl Delete in the VM environment. I'm gonna use the key icon to send Alt Ctrl Delete at the top of the screen. So I click on that, and then I put the password that I set. So I press enter. It's asking whether this PC should be discoverable by other PCs in the network. I can select no. and the installation has been completed. When a Windows Server 2016 starts, it comes to this Server Manager automatically by default, and this is the dashboard of the Server Manager. Now I'm gonna rename this computer, so I go to the local server from the Server Manager and then click on the computer name. Here it got this computer name, and I'm gonna change it to the name that I want. So I click on the change button. So I type in the name. Even though I'm using the exact same computer name as the virtual machine name, please note that the computer name and virtual machine name are completely different. If you change the computer name, it's not going to change the virtual machine name, and if you change the virtual machine name, it's not going to change the computer name. So I change the computer name and press OK. It's prompting to restart the computer, and I have to restart the computer by pressing OK. Next, I press on the close button and the computer will restart. Computer is restarted. I press on the All Control Delete button and then log in by using the password. It opens the Server Manager again, and if I check the computer name by going to the local server, I can see that the new computer name has been applied. Next, I'm gonna set up the time zone for this VM. So from the Start menu, I open Control Panel and then open Clock Language and Region. Then I select Change Time Zone. Then again Change Time Zone, and from the drop down I select Eastern Time, US Canada, and then press OK and press OK again. Then I close Control Panel. Most of the network services that we're going to use in this video series applies to a domain setting, so I need to set up a domain before I install any of those services. So I go to the dashboard of the Server Manager, and then I will add Active Directory Domain Service from Add Roles and Features. So Add Roles and Features wizard has been started. I go Next, and then again Next, Next again. And this is the server role page, and from this page I select Active Directory Domain Services and then confirm by pressing on Add Features and go Next and Next, Next again. And then I will also select here Restart the destination server automatically if required, and confirm by pressing on Yes and then press on Install. It's going to take a couple of minutes to finish this installation. Active Directory Domain Services installation has been completed and the computer got restarted. Now I'm at the Server Manager dashboard. I see a notification at the top here, and then in the notification it says post deployment configuration is required. I need to promote this server to a domain controller. There is no domain controller in the domain, and this is the only server that I have in this domain, so I have to promote this computer as a domain controller. So I click on promote this server to a domain controller, and then here I have to select the option add a new forest, and for the root domain name I will use my last name .local. Then I'll go Next Next, I have to create a directory services password. I will use the same password as the local administrator password. However, they can be different. And then I go next. Next again. And then it will take some time to verify the NetBIOS name. So when the next button becomes active, I select next. And next again. This is a review of the changes. So I click next. Now it's validating the prerequisite. And at the prerequisites check, it says all prerequisite checks passed successfully. So I click on install. Next, the computer will restart. So I press on the close button at the prompt. And then the computer is restarting. All the settings have been applied. It took some time to apply those settings. Now I'm going to log in, and you can see a domain name is here with the administrator account. So I log in this domain. After logging in, the server manager opens automatically, and I am at the dashboard of the server manager. As you notice that a DNS service has been installed when I promoted this server to a domain controller. So under tools, the DNS item is there. Now I want to go to the local server and verify that the domain was created, and you can see that the domain was created. Next, I'm gonna shut down this machine and add a second network card. The second network card will be used to communicate other VMs internally within the same host. The first network card I have while installing Windows Server 2016 will be used to communicate to the internet. While the VM is selected, I will go to Edit Virtual Machine Settings. I can also right click on the VM and select Settings. Now from the left side, I will add a network card. So I click on Add, and then select Network Adapter, and then Finish. So this network adapter settings is NAT by default. I will change it to host only, so that I will use this network card to communicate to other VMs within the same host. So I click on OK. Now I start the machine. Next I log in. Next, I'm going to configure the second network card that I just added. So I go to the local server, and then I can see both network cards. The second one is Ethernet 1. I select the IP address assigned by DHCP link. And then this is the one, Ethernet 1. I right click on it and then select Properties. And then double click on TCP IP version 4. And then I will assign a static IP. So I select use the following IP address, and then type in the static IP 172.16.0.10. Subnet mask is 255.255.0.0. The default gateway would be 172.16.0.2. 172.16.0.2. 172.16.0.1. 172.16.0.3. 172.16.0.4. 172.16.0.5. 172.16.0.6. 172.16.0.7. 172.16.0.8. 172.16.0.9. 172.16.0.10. 172.16.0.11. 172.16.0.12. 172.16.0.13. 172.16.0.14. 172.16.0.15. 172.16.0.16. 172.16.0.16. 172.16.0.17. 172.16.0.18. 172.16.0.19. 172.16.0.20. 172.16.0.21. 172.16.0.22. 172.16.0.23. 172.16.0.24. 172.16.0.25. 172.16.0.26. 172.16.0.27. 172.16.0.28. 172.16.0.29. 172.16.0.30. 172.16.0.31. 172.16.0.32. 172.16.0.33. 172.16.0.34. 172.16.0.35. 172.16.0.36. 172.16 A default gateway is the IP address of a router connected to this network through which a computer can communicate to outside networks. And in the preferred DNS, I will use the IP address of this machine itself, which is 172.16.0.10, because the DNS server is this machine itself. So I press OK and then OK again. To get the new setting take effect, I will right click on the network card, disable it, and then right click again and enable it. I can verify the network settings by right clicking on the network card and then select status, and then go to details. Here is the IP address that I set up, subnet mask, gateway, and the DNS server IP. So everything looks okay. We close this one and close this one. Also, I close this window. The VMware software has a tool named VMware Tools. That tool helps to make a better screen resolution for the VMs, as well as it captures the input-output in a better way. For example, the mouse movements becomes much smoother when you install VMware Tools. I'm going to install VMware Tools now. So I go to the VM menu at the top and then install VMware Tools. When I select this option, then it automatically mounts a virtual CD with the CD drive in VM. So if I open the CD drive from File Explorer and then expand this PC, go to the DVD CD, and you can see that a CD DVD has been mounted. Now simply I can run setup 64 or setup. Because my computer has a 64-bit operating system, I will choose setup 64. So I double click. It has started the installation and the window is behind, so I minimize this one. And here the installation wizard, so I go next and select typical and then go next and install. Normally a restart will be needed, so if it asks to restart, please do restart. So it's asking to restart the system, so I select yes. The computer has restarted. Log in with my domain administrator password. And then it opens Server Manager dashboard. That brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found this video was helpful. If you would like to receive notifications on future videos, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and set up notification by tapping on the bell. Thank you for watching.